Can the Atlanta Hawks bounce back this season? A new head coach around mostly the same roster. Can Quinn Snyder inject some much needed life into their offense? Can Trae Young develop any sort of off-ball game? What sort of growth can we see from Dejounte Murray? Can we see some internal development from some of their younger guys? And can this team return back to postseason basketball? Let's discuss. But first, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. The season is almost here, and we have tons of great NBA videos coming your way to get you prepped for what should be an awesome season. Despite making the Dejounte Murray trade last summer, the Hawks were about as mid as you can get in the NBA last season, and I don't mean that in a mean way. They finished the season 41-41, they had the 19th best net rating, they were a good offensive team and a subpar defensive team. Even their net rating last season was 0, but at the same time, it was the first year of a new look team. With Murray in the fold, it came as no surprise that this team had to take a season to just adjust to their new look backcourt. And inherently, they needed a new coach to come with it. Quinn Snyder was brought in with just 23 games remaining in the season after the Hawks let go of Nate McMillan. The Hawks, led by Murray and Trae, and a superb performance from Clint Capella, beat the Miami Heat in the 7-8 play-in matchup, landing themselves a first-round date with the Boston Celtics, whom they pushed to 6 games thanks to some really impressive performances by Trae. Through those 30-plus games under Snyder, the Hawks slowly but surely started to develop a new identity, one that prioritizes spacing and movement next to Young and Murray. Ultimately, all of last season was sort of a transition year for Atlanta, as they got acclimated to a new coach, some new faces, and a new identity. Now this season, you can only hope that they build on that foundation that they were starting to develop. This summer, they inked Murray to a 4-year, $120 million extension that should keep him in Atlanta until 2027 at least. Honestly, I'm still kind of curious to see how Coach Snyder tweaks Murray's fit next to Trae and how he optimizes those two together. Maybe they stagger them more often this season. Maybe we see Murray as the ball handler more and Trae finally off of the ball more often, or probably a combination of both things. Most importantly, finding ways to space the floor for those two to operate is key, and there's no question that things looked much better when guys like Saddiq Bey and Bogdan Bogdanovic were in the lineup, helping them space things offensively. In fact, Bey's impact was pretty seismic as soon as he got to Atlanta. The Hawks had a net rating of +8 with him on the floor and -6 with Bey off of the floor in over 1,000 minutes. That's a 14-point swing in efficiency. They were both better on offense and defense, and his two-way ability really helped glue that team together. It was the 40% shooting from behind the arc that helped, but I think he gave them an extra body on the wings that helped insulate Trae a little bit more on defense as well. Now, they also added Wesley Matthews and Patty Mills this summer, 2 more veteran players who can help stretch the floor for them in spot minutes throughout the season. While they're on the older side and the Hawks are stacked at their positions, they're pretty good insurance in case someone goes down with an injury this season. At the 2023 draft in the first round, they also added Kobe Buffkin out of Michigan, who is a personal favorite of mine from this draft class. Buffkin is a combo guard who can do a little bit of everything. He's bursty, so he knows how to get downhill and create advantages for himself and others. He was a good shooter while in Michigan, and while he wasn't really tasked with leading the team, especially with Jet Howard on the roster, he still showed out in the second half of his second season and raised his draft stock a bunch. I really like Buffkin, and I am higher on him than most, and will probably be tuning into a lot of Hawks games because of it. Ultimately, I'm sort of curious to see where he fits on this Hawks team, especially with Trae and Murray taking up so much of the usage. That won't matter in year 1 when he's still adjusting to the professional game, but down the road, it does make me wonder what his role on this team will be. Besides those offseason additions, the Hawks also traded a major fixture of this core, John Collins, to the Utah Jazz in order to free up some cap space and financial flexibility for this team. Collins' fit became wonky in Atlanta because of his inconsistent jump shot, especially with Murray, another inconsistent shooter, in the fold now long term. And while the Hawks could miss out on some of the defensive versatility that he provided, Collins' absence ultimately opens the door for some of their younger players to get more time to develop. While either Bey or Hunter would start at 4 for the Hawks this season next to Capella, the player on the team that stands to benefit the most from Collins' absence is Jalen Johnson. Johnson is entering his 3rd year in the league, and you wouldn't know from looking at his box score stats through his first 2 seasons, but he is slowly becoming one of the most impactful members on this team. He is a utility knife in all aspects and on both ends of the floor. Defensively, he has an incredible awareness off the ball, he has great anticipation skills, and his long arms make him perfect to be a weak side rim protector and rover. Because of his size, standing at 6'9", Johnson can hold his own defensively on the ball as well, and I think he's going to look even better on that end this season. Ultimately, if you look at what the Hawks need to insulate Trae's weaknesses on defense, it's players like Johnson and Murray who are attentive off of the ball, who can switch out to multiple positions and take on the harder assignments. The shooting is something that absolutely has to improve. He shot less than 30% in both of his seasons, but he's still found ways to be impactful on offense. He is great in transition, using his athleticism to streak out on fast breaks for dunks and lobs. He's a good cutter and mover, and that pairs perfectly next to a cerebral passer like Trae. He is also a pretty good passer himself, and projects to be a point forward type player who can make plays, especially in 3-on-2, 4-on-3 situations that are created when teams load up on Trae and Dejounte. Can't say enough about how important he is for this team's future, and I think the same can be said about these next two prospects. First and foremost, Onyeka Okongwu, their undersized center who is a defensive monster. Despite only being 6'9", Onyeka plays much bigger, he's a great rim protector, can switch out onto multiple positions, and most notably has played some pretty great defense against Giannis Antetokounmpo anytime they've squared off. Again, the box score doesn't jump out to you at all, but his impact is evident. He's continuing to expand his game offensively, although he's probably best suited as a rim runner, short roll creator who can make some plays similar to Johnson can, although maybe not to the same degree. Ultimately, just because of his ability to roll to the basket, he pairs well alongside Trae. Although it was on low frequency, Okongwu generated 1.27 points per possession as the pick and roll man. It is a potent combination. It's for that reason that the Hawks have reportedly started shopping Capella, because they think Okongwu is ready to assume the role of full-time starter. Maybe that happens this season, maybe it's next season, but ultimately that's what he'll be for this final version of the team. But perhaps the prospect on the Hawks that is most tantalizing, the one that could change their ceiling with a leap, is AJ Griffin. Griffin is a long, rangy wing that showed his two-way impact in his rookie season for the Hawks. He was actually a positive defender as a rookie, which is super rare to see, and I think ultimately it's going to be tough not to consider starting him this season. Offensively, he is dynamic, both on and off the ball. He shot nearly 40% from behind the arc on 4 attempts a game, but I think if he were to get more shots up, he'd stick around 37-38%. He is a great pull-up shooter, which makes him ideal to be an offensive hub in this league. And as he continues to expand his game off of the dribble, he'll continue to expand his playmaking as well. He has genuine potential to be a 3-level scorer and creator in the NBA, and to say that as a wing who isn't a negative on defense is huge for a player entering his second season. Griffin has all-star level potential. That's how good he can be. And if he ends up becoming that sooner rather than later, he can help take this Hawks team from fun, frisky playoff team to a potential contender. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. It'll be interesting to see how they manage all of these young guys, how they empower them developmentally, and ultimately, I'm curious to see if any trades are made at any point in this season. Like I said, they were sniffing around to see what they could get for their big man Capella, and they even considered upgrading at the forward spot by trading for Pascal Siakam. Now, the Hawks were really close to doing so, from what I've been told, and a deal with the Raptors almost happened. One that included Hunter, Griffin, and a future pick, but ultimately, the Raptors balked at the offer, hoping they could get more for their All-NBA talent. I'm curious to see if the Raptors and Hawks reconvene at some point this season to discuss Siakam again, because I think he would be a great fit on this team on both ends. He'd alleviate tons of pressure off of Trae and Murray as creators. He's a long defender who covers ground well and can clean up mistakes, and on top of that, he can guard multiple positions. He is an offensive hub unto himself, and it would be a huge get for the Hawks that will put them over the Knicks, Pacers, and Cavaliers, in my opinion, as far as Eastern Conference pecking order goes, with a pretty good chance that they can be even better than the Sixers, depending on how the Harden situation shakes out. Regardless, with the amount of intriguing prospects the Hawks have in Bufkin, Johnson, Griffin, and Okongwu, Atlanta is in a position to either watch these guys blossom into players that can complement Trae and Murray, or trade some of those guys in order to make their team even more formidable. Atlanta is projected at 42.5 wins, and I'm comfortable taking the over, given the fact that they will have one full season under Snyder and because of some of the leaps I'm expecting from their younger players. Ultimately, Atlanta is going to be flirting with a playoff spot this season, and while Boston, Milwaukee, Miami, Philadelphia, Cleveland, New York, and even Indiana might have something to say about that, I give the Hawks a pretty good shot at making some noise. When you have the top end talent of Trae and Murray packed with a nucleus of intriguing young players that could break out in any given season, you always give yourself a chance to punch above your weight. And I think the Hawks can do that. Are they a playoff team this season? Let us know in the comments, and as always, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you later.